Bob Boyer helps Santa every year by bringing the gift of holiday cheer to children and families across North Alabama. During Christmas time, kids turn to one man to lift their spirits.
Children get to see Santa, and that's a lot of joy and magic that is ingrained there.
Bob has played the role of Santa Claus for 16 years.
I keep it all just because it goes so far back.
Promising gifts to children across North Alabama.
My goal in life has always been to entertain a little bit and to make people happy.
But 10 years ago, Santa Bob was very close to putting down the big red coat for good. In fact, Bob's life is nothing short of a Christmas miracle.
In August of 2011, I woke up one morning with a major pain in my chest. Turns out it was a widowmaker heart attack.
A widowmaker, a term given to a heart condition so severe it often results in death.
The whole left side basically was not working anymore.
Bob's heart was broken, and as a Hail Mary, he turned to the only thing that could save his life, a heart transplant.
I called UAB and I said, okay, I think I have everything straight. Go ahead and officially put me on the list.
A list all too familiar for Santa and for a man who has dedicated a life to giving. Bob received a gift after just 4 hours of waiting.
They called and found a heart, which is still some sort of strange record, I think, at UAB.
Jared Bowles' heart, only 25 years old, a match for Bob.
We knew from a tragic situation that my brother was not going to make it. We knew that he would want to help someone if he was ever given a chance to.
A decade has passed since Bob's heart transplant, and he was determined to show his gratitude for his new lease on life. So just as those due to contact Santa, Bob took out a pen and paper and began writing.
I remember my mom, the first thing when she was explaining the letter to me was that he was able to dance with his daughter at her wedding and walk her down the aisle. And I remember at that time we were still, grieving the situation, but how special that was and how we felt in that moment like this was going to be something more.
The start of a friendship, bonded through a broken heart.
That's been just the most amazing blessing ever to be able to be a part of her family every Christmas and all year round.
A Christmas tradition for jolly old Santa Claus and a message from Bob that in the spirit of the holiday season is rooted in giving.
You might save Santa Claus. I mean, you never know what might happen, who might have a second chance at life afterwards.
Sedona Meadows, Fox 54 News.
I guess the best way, we could start with you, Bob, and talk a little bit about, what led up to the transplant. Kind of just tell me a little bit about your story.
In August of 2011, I woke up one morning with a major pain in my chest. Turns out it was a widowmaker heart attack. They got me to the hospital in record time, did a stent operation, and basically I thought, wow, what a bullet I have dodged here, and I did. But then we found out about 6 months later that there was so much damage done to the heart while I was having the heart attack that the whole left side basically was not working anymore. So they decided that, yes, you need an entire heart transplant. They found this out in January of 2012. And they took me to UAB to be evaluated and found out that I was a perfect candidate for a transplant and said, yeah, we'll go ahead and get you on the list. And then basically about a month went by while we tried to straighten out all the insurance and all that sort of thing and all the post-op medications that you have to be on afterwards. And basically once everything was set, it was a Mardi Gras Tuesday, and I called UAB and I said, okay, I think I have everything straight. Go ahead and officially put me on the list. And I had asked them beforehand, I said, how long could someone like myself wait for a transplant? And they said, well, it might be anywhere from 6 weeks to 6 months, but you're in no danger. Everything's nice and leveled out and all that sort of thing. And 4 hours later, they called and found a heart, which is still some sort of strange record, I think, at UAB. But yeah, they found a heart. We got down to the hospital around midnight and then waited basically a few hours into the next day. And as they say, the rest is history.
That's awesome. And what was going through your mind when they said that they found you a heart?
Well, I wasn't expecting it that fast, obviously. They do a lot of preparation when you're going to have a transplant, a major organ transplant. You deal with coordinators and specialists, and they tell you, things that you're going to need to look for after the operation and things like that. And they kind of prep you for the beforehand. They said, a lot of times you might get what's called basically like a false call. Like you'll come down to the hospital and they found out something's wrong with the heart. And so you go back and wait again. They said, maybe be prepared for that. That wasn't the case here at all. But yeah, they kind of prep you. They sort of tell you it's kind of like having a baby, pack a bag and be ready to go at any time. And so the weird part was I was here at the TV station just doing my regular job, and I had called 2 or 3 in the afternoon and said, okay, I'm good with the insurance, put me on the list. And then I got home that evening, and at 9 o'clock the phone rang, and they said, hey, we found one, and nothing can prepare you for that. Like I sort of joked with my wife when I walked in. I said, hey, I officially called, so be ready to do anything. And then we weren't thinking 2 hours later, hey, here we go. So yeah, it was, I didn't really have time to think about it a lot. It just happened. All of it was like that, as far as, it was kind of sudden and going to be evaluated and getting everything ready, and then, okay, I'm ready, and bang, here's the heart. So I didn't really have a whole lot of time beforehand to think about it a lot or form any fears or opinions. It was just, okay, this is what we're going to do. But once it all happened, then it was very real, very, very fast. And, it's kind of like watching yourself in a movie, because it all just moves so quick and it's so surreal. I've never been sick a day in my life before this had happened, other than a cold or something. And I've never really been in a hospital at all, other than the heart attack stuff. And that was sort of quick and in and out. But nothing, prepared me for this. You're suddenly having to shave from head to toe. There's a whole funny story that goes with the beard. But yeah, it was very, very strange. And then, suddenly you're being wheeled back there, and everybody's, in jumpsuits and gowns, and it's really real. And that was a little overwhelming, but then they put you to sleep, and I don't remember much after that.
Absolutely. I'm gonna treat this over. I know it's a little awkward to move this, but I'm gonna move on.
Okay.
Oh, good.
So now I'm gonna get your first and last name spelled for me really quickly, just so I have that on record.
Okay, it's Emily, Emily, Lanier, Lanier.
Perfect. And so Emily, so tell me a little bit about your side of the story. What happened that day that, just walk me through it. I want to hear a little bit about how this heart came to be.
Okay. So obviously we knew from a tragic situation that my brother was not going to make it. And so we had conversations beforehand throughout his life, and we had discussed things, and we knew that he would want to help someone if he was ever given a chance to. So we were actually at Huntsville Hospital in the neurointensive care unit. So there was a team for Alabama Donate Life there. They had nurses there, coordinators there that met with us, and they didn't necessarily, I'm trying to think how they went about it. So they just approached the idea, and then if it's something that you are interested in, then of course there's follow-up meetings, and they're really, it was really amazing to kind of see how that all played out and came about. So we knew, I'm a nurse. I was a new nurse at the time. I'd only been nursing about a year and a half when this happened. So I knew, impacts of how, something like this could help someone. So we just decided that's what we wanted to do, and that's what we went with.
That's beautiful. Can you tell me a little bit about your brother? Who he was?
Yes. So he was 25 when he passed away, and I was 23 at the time. So we had grown up really close, and at, about 6th grade, we were in the same grade. So we grew up together. We were always in the same circle of friends, doing the same things at the same time. We graduated high school together, so we were all close. And he was just a really likable, lovable guy. He was always fun. He was always there to make everybody laugh, and always, just kind of always the joy in the room.
That's beautiful. And so when you encouraged, him to obviously have his organs donated after the accident, did you know how fast someone was going to receive a heart?
No, I was unfamiliar with the process, other than knowing, that someone could have an organ transplant. As far as how things worked, we did learn at the time, though, you could submit names. We weren't aware of that, didn't know that was even a possibility. So throughout the process, we learned some things. So we were just hopeful. We were just wanting to do something good from a tragic situation. So that's what we went with.
That's wonderful. And so kind of, I guess we can go back to you, Bob, of, walking through how this whole came about of finding out this family, walk me through that process.
So when you receive an organ transplant, you are encouraged a few months later, if you would like to write a letter to the family. And I have since equated it to I think what maybe prison letters are like. You're not supposed to say a lot of things because of privacy regulations and things. So you're not really allowed to talk about your name or where you live or anything like that. But one way or another, and we'll just say, I knew that this heart had come from the Huntsville area. I didn't know where specifically, but we somehow did find that out. And so I knew that with what I do every day and all the Santa things and other things that I do out in the public, it's entirely possible I may bump into the folks that, had this person in their family. And so I was very interested in writing. And so I wrote several letters, and through a career of television and promotions writing, I'm quite creative with my creative writing. And so I kind of dropped some hints that apparently made it through enough to where one day here at the TV station, at the time I was working as a commercial editor, and one day at the TV station my phone rang and it was a lady at the other end, and she said, "Is this Bob Boyer?" And I said, "Yes, it is." And she says, "Is this Bob Boyer that's a Santa?" And I said, "Yes." And this was March, I think, or something. It wasn't any time around Santa season. And I said, "Do you live in Huntsville?" And at this point I'm thinking, what are we doing here? Why are we asking all these strange questions? And suddenly she says, "Well, I don't even know if this is legal." And then that made me wonder, what are we doing? And then she said, "But I'm your heart transplant donor." And I'm like, "Wait a minute, what?" And she meant mother, obviously, but it was Emily's mom, Sherry, and she had reached out and just decided to call. I don't know how she put it all together, but she found me. And I said, "Well, this is amazing." And, probably started crying endlessly or whatever. But we talked, I think, for about 20 minutes on the phone that day. And it was a very big deal, because I didn't know anything about anybody or anything. And we talked for a good bit, and we decided we would like to reach out more. So I reached out to the Alabama Organ Center and said, "Okay, what do I have to do to," basically you just fill out some paperwork that says we absolve everybody from privacy laws or whatever, and we can talk. And then I think the first time that I ever actually met anyone from the family was at a Huntsville Havoc hockey game where I was working, and I think the whole family was going to come out that night, and I think something happened at the last minute, and Emily showed up at the control room door at the hockey game and said, "Hi, I'm Emily, I'm the sister." And I'm like, "Oh," and I was just blown away. It's so emotional, and a terrible place to try to have that meeting in a hallway at the VBC arena where it's 12 below while it's ice skating and stuff. Anyway, but yeah, that I think was the first time, and then we were able to get together a little more informally and meet out at Botanical Gardens. And then the whole Santa thing came along when she started having children, and that's been just the most amazing blessing ever, to be able to be a part of her family every Christmas and all year round. It's just been wonderful to be able to watch Evie, now Sophie, grow up. It's just been an amazing thing, and that's why I originally wrote letters. Was if you're wanting to know, did this organ donation come to some good? I think it did. There are thousands of children that are happy to see Santa because of the gift that this family gave me. So I'm glad that we're able to share that all over the place now. It's just a nice thing.
That's beautiful. I'm kind of touching on that, and then I'll move with you. But tell me a little bit. I know we've talked about, after you got this heart, it was like this, almost like a new lease on life of I want to live my life to the fullest and give back. Can you talk a little bit about how you give back to the community?
Well, it's the Christmas season, and I have no idea when this will air, but this has been the busiest Christmas season this Santa has ever seen. And that's one of the biggest ways, I think, that I try to give back, because it's very obvious, children get to see Santa, and that's a lot of joy and magic that is ingrained. There are some families I know in Huntsville, I've had photos with their children from when they were born to now they're 10 and 12 years old. And it's just amazing, to think that I'm a part of that. But I try to do a lot of things all year long. Many years ago, a lady named Jackie Reeves called me and asked me if I would be a part of the Huntsville Ghost Walk as a tour guide. And I never really thought of myself as an entertainer, I suppose, but it seems to have become a second niche in life for me. For someone who has spent his whole career behind the scenes in TV, it's a little odd to be out in front, but we do that, and then that has blossomed into a bunch of things that we do with the little pedal bike here in town, where we do tours, and it's become kind of a year-round thing. And then I do video work for the Huntsville Havoc, so I try to give back. My goal in life has always been to entertain a little bit and to make people happy, and so the news part, that's a little hard to do, but Santa and things like that, it's been very easy, and so I just look for opportunities to do that. And the nice thing is, because Jared's heart is so much younger, I have way more energy than a 56-year-old person should have. So this past weekend, I did roughly 9 events in 3 days and drove probably 300 or 400 miles to see all kinds of children and be at different parties and things like that. And I'm pretty sure I would not be able to do that and have that stamina without this heart. So yes, it's definitely been a factor in the giving back part.
Awesome. I'll do the awkward move again. Okay, perfect. So, Emily, tell me a bit about when you guys received the letter. Did you read it too? What was the whole process behind that for you guys?
Yes, so when we started receiving letters, it was in the spring, and I want to say it was near Easter or around the time when my mom and I would be cleaning up in the yard, getting ready for Easter. So I remember us being outside and her telling me about receiving some letters. And so usually each recipient is encouraged to send a letter. So we had received letters from different people, but I remember her talking about the person that received the heart and how in depth the letter was, and how it was better than any of the other letters, I guess you could say. And we were just kind of putting things together and trying to learn a little on our own, not necessarily seeking out people, but we kind of had the same thoughts as him. What if this is something that we run into this person one day, or what would happen if we ever were to find out who the recipient would have been, so to speak. So that's kind of what intrigued us a little bit, as we knew from the beginning, and all the letters that we received was the heart was a little different as far as how grateful he was. And I remember my mom, the first thing when she was explaining the letter to me was that he was able to dance with his daughter at her wedding and walk her down the aisle. And I remember at that time we were still grieving the situation, but how special that was and how we felt in that moment like this was going to be something more.
That's beautiful. And what was it like to meet Bob in person?
It was good. Like he said, we were going to a Huntsville Havoc game, and so Mom had conversation, phone conversation. Mm-hmm. We had found one another on Facebook, I think. So. And so it was kind of like, we don't always necessarily come to Huntsville. We live about an hour away. So I thought, this is never going to be a perfect time, so let's just do it. So that's kind of how it went. I thought, I don't want it to be awkward, but I don't know of a plan for an icebreaker, meet and greet like this. So I just went with it. We met. It was great. And so actually, my parents, I believe, met you after that.
I think so. Yep.
Yeah. So maybe.
Yeah, I think
we met a few weeks to a month after that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's wonderful. And how does it feel knowing that your brother's heart does live on, and to see all the things that Bob does?
It's really special, and we're really blessed, and we're really grateful. for what came out of our situation. It would be, anyone's ideal situation, I would think, to have someone that wants to give back, that wants to be a trailblazer and share his story, and to encourage others that, there's different ways you can help. You may not. I think one thing that my mom and my dad, and we were all just kind of taken aback at the time, is we weren't really educated enough about organ donation, and that's one good experience at the hospital, is we learned so much during that point. And so, and then him now just knowing that, he has it instilled in him that he wants to give back, he wants to share his story with so many people is so special to us. And then, of course, him being a part of our Christmas photos every year is so special to me and my family as well.
That's so beautiful. I can see the great relationship that you two have. You both have been so wonderful in everything that you've been sharing. Is there anything that I didn't ask you about that you want to share just about this experience, or just how, it's been? I know that's kind of a generic question, but I always like to ask if there's, anything that I did not touch on that you want to share. Because I know, Bob, you said that, really, if it wasn't for Emily, who knows what would happen.
It's from, I was going to say, if you want to reset. And I have no idea, because the funny thing is, we have never in all of this time really ever just sat down for 4 hours and just talked heart and talked all of this. Like, we've done several of these interviews over the years, and I learn more about it in every interview. Like, this is the first time I've heard a lot of this, that they got to read the letters together and things like that. So I get caught up on it in a lot of these meetings. But one of the things, the way I understood it was, and I may be completely wrong, was that Emily was a very key part in convincing her mom and dad to be able to go ahead and sign the forms and say, yes, we want to be organ donors. And my mother and my sister were both nurses, and so I'm very familiar with the profession and all the stuff that it entails, and I'm so grateful that Emily is a nurse and knew at that moment what a difference it could make, and all that sort of stuff. So I am very grateful for that part of it. And the other interesting thing that I said as soon as everything looked like, oh, it's all a success and you're going to be great and all this sort of thing, was I told every doctor that came by, hey, I happen to work at a television station. I have a background in radio, pretty coherent talking on camera, so I'll be happy to promote this. And for about the first 2 or 3 years, I was asked to speak at so many events, just because it's a unique story. It's not just the heart transplant, it's all the other things that go with it. So yeah, I've done a lot of that, and that's one thing that I'm very grateful that they are able to do this also and come over and help share the story. Because one of the things Emily mentioned is a lot of folks are not aware of the intricacies of organ donation. A lot of people have misconceptions over it. I didn't know anything about it, obviously, before all this started. I knew a little bit, but I've been educated also. I tend to speak to people on behalf of the donation center and that sort of thing. But that's one reason we're sitting all here today, is it's another opportunity, especially at Christmas time, for people to take a moment and think, am I an organ donor? Should I be an organ donor? What might happen? Well, you might save Santa Claus. I mean, you never know what might happen, who might have a second chance at life afterwards. So I'm always happy to help get the word out about it, and I'm just absolutely thrilled and overjoyed that Emily and her family are also willing to do this from time to time. We've done commercials and PSAs and things in the past, so it's just a nice way to get the word out. And just again, a very simple reminder: you might save Santa Claus, so make sure you're an organ donor. You're on the nice list.
Is there anything that you wanted to add, Emily, that I didn't ask you about your brother, or just this experience, anything that?
I don't think so. I think we went over pretty much everything. Yeah.
Perfect. I'll go ahead and stop recording then.
Okay.
Yeah, it is really